This is episode 25 of The Living Reminders with Mary and Blake. From Providence, Rhode Island, welcome to The Living Reminders. It's a podcast dedicated to the leftovers on HBO. We're still here and so are you. So let's chat with Amy Brenneman.
Suddenly I'm hit. It's the darkness of the dawn, and your friends are gone, and your friends won't come. So show me where you fit. So show me where you fit.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Mary Larson.
My name's Blake, and I love the idea of grabbing and stealing laptops from little kids.
Me too.
I think it's a great idea.
Especially if it's yours. That poor kid, though, he's going to have nightmares for the rest of his life about some blonde, dirty blonde lady coming on in with curly hair. Curly hair flying like mad, just stealing stuff.
On fire. just grab and take. Grab and take.
Crazy town.
Imagine that. Imagine some lady just coming in your room. You don't even know who she is. And she's just taking your stuff.
I'm not kidding. That kid's going to be in therapy. I got broken into once. And I'm like freaked out every single time I hear a creak in the floor. That kid's going to have serious issues.
Well, my love, what are we doing here today?
We are having a third episode of this recorded week because, you know, the Living Reminders, we just can't get enough of the leftovers. It's like we're just so excited that the show's back, that we're on crack, and we're like, let's talk about it all the time. And so in addition to our first episode and then our second episode of listener feedback, we actually had an awesome interview. We got to interview Amy Brenneman, who plays Laurie, the laptop girl that we've known to love. Really, really excited to be able to share this with you guys. It's just such an honor to be able to interview these stars and to share these conversations and get feedback from you guys and all the questions. So thank you all for your excitement. I don't even feel like talking that much more. I just want to get into this interview.
Let's do it.
Joining us today is Amy Brenneman, a multi-time Emmy Award-nominated actress, writer, and producer who starred in NYPD Blue, Judging Amy, and Private Practice. She's also starred in various feature films, including Heat, Fear, and Daylight. But we all know her as the silent, troubled, and deeply conflicted Laurie Garvey on her favorite television show right now on HBO, The Leftovers. Amy, thank you so much for joining us here on The Living Reminders today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What drew you to this role and to this show? It seems a bit of a departure, no pun intended, and yet pun intended, from the series leads that you've had in the past, medical and cop, etc.
What drew me to the role was Tom Perrotta and Damon Lindelof. I think you do different jobs for different reasons, just like everybody. When I am in producing mode, like I was in Judging Amy, I have sort of a different relationship to the show, obviously. But I mean, similarly to Private Practice, actually, in that case, I really was interested in Shonda Rhimes. And in this case, it was Damon. So less of the role. I mean, it was really, there was so little on the page, especially for Laurie in the first season. For all of us, really, but I didn't even have lines. So you really are trusting and staying engaged with the creator. I also, Damon won me over when he said, here are the 3 reasons why you shouldn't take this job. And I said, okay. And he said, it shoots in New York, and I live in Los Angeles with my kids. He said, you don't wear any makeup, and you have no lines. And I said, okay, sign me up. That sounds really good.
Did you read the book before you were cast in the role? And if you did, or if you read it since, well, why you were cast, were there any tips or ideas you took from the book iteration of Laurie? Like, for example, in the show, Laurie seems a little bit more strict and a little bit more silent than her book role.
Well, I didn't read it before I got the role, and then as soon as I was cast, actually, I remember at the table read. You know, they said, okay, anybody that hasn't read the book, don't read the book. And Tom said that as well, because it's like so going to be so different, and don't, you know, get attached to the book. I, of course, immediately went out and read the book, partly because, you know, the book, as you know, I mean, it's about a half to a third, really, of Laurie's inner monologue. So when you have a character that has no lines of dialogue, then I had to get the beat on what she's thinking. I mean, that said, the tone of our show and therefore the characters are quite different from the book. And Laurie was, you know, I think kind of a homemaker. You know, I think all of Tom's choices were a little bit lighter and a little bit more sarcastic or ironic. He has that wonderful tone, you know. So we sort of dug in with Laurie and made her a little bit more complicated, a little stronger, a little darker.
And did you like that change? Do you think it was good for the character itself?
Yeah, I mean, the book, you know, for Laurie, it's like the book, there wouldn't be much to play. I mean, really, it was her responses. And so I think in general, I mean, the miracle of the show is like, how do you take this amazing premise, you know, and Tom's kind of amazing creative, you know, creation of this worldview, but give it some narrative drive, not only for one episode, but for, in this case, 20. So I think in general it became more muscular, and and I think HBO actually wanted it to sort of go deep and dark, especially that first season, and not have, you know, Tom's stuff like Election and Little Children and even Leftovers has, you know, it has this wonderful kind of sardonic, has a humor to it and we have humor in ours, but I would say it's a different quality for sure.
So preparing for your role, did you try to go for long stretches without speaking while you were researching it? Was it harder or easier than one might imagine?
I did not prepare that way now. Although the one way I did, you know, I'm a very lazy actress. I just sort of it really comes alive for me when the camera's on me, or, you know, not, you know, just sort of like, that's when it becomes real. Although, because we shot in New York and I was on, I can't even count that first season, how many planes I was on. I said to my husband, I was like, oh my God, I play a woman who's abandoned her children. And once a week I get on a plane and I abandon my children. So I think what did feed quite nicely into, the state of mind that for the first season especially is, you know, I was like constantly in these location vans at 3 a.m. in frigid weather. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about that first season, by myself. I mean, I was constantly by myself. So I almost didn't really have to work at it. And then what's interesting is, you know, it's funny how the quality of the piece and the quality of the character always sort of infiltrates the vibe on the set. So just playing Laurie, you know, 'cause I'm a very chatty person, but when I played Laurie, I just thought I didn't chat as much, you know, in between takes and all that kind of bonhomie. You know, I just sort of stayed to myself quite a bit.
You know, you talked about being a lazy actor there. I just want to follow up on that. What's it like to just all of a sudden turn that silence on, you know, oddly enough, for the camera, like going from a producerial role, like in previous roles that you've had, to all of a sudden just being an actress and then not talking? I mean, describe that feeling of just all of a sudden turning it on.
Well, the not producing piece is joy. Producing's really hard, and I love it, and I will, you know, I'm doing it now on this NBC show, and it's part of what I do. But it's also really fun not to do it, and you know, Leftovers is like a production, you know, Herculean effort. So, you know, there'd be so many. I mean, every day it was like a mountain. You know, it's like, oh, we're losing the light and this and that. And, you know, I was like, oh, I'm not producing. I'm so happy. So that was fine. You know, I think for me the big leap, I think I was pretty uncomfortable, although I'm sort of used to being filmed even before I figured things out. So the first couple episodes of last season, I was, you know, was, as you do, you know, sort of exploring on camera. But for me, the big leap was recognizing how, you know, I've done a lot of theater. I come from theater, as most of us do, and I was a modern dancer, and we was, you know, the kind of theater I was into was very abstract, and when I thought of it that way, I realized like, oh my God, I've actually played a lot of roles where I don't speak. You know, it's just more expected on stage where you have more abstraction, you know, than in film and television, which is usually pretty narrative. So once I sort of let myself go into that, and so it wasn't like, okay, this is what you have no lines. It's like, no, this is a whole other, you know, it's sort of like watercolors and sculpture. I mean, it's just a whole other medium.
Yeah, we actually had the pleasure of speaking with Ann Dowd over the break.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's a Massachusetts girl, and I'm so proud of that. And you know, she talked about finding herself and making people almost uncomfortable when she didn't talk and interacting with those around her. Is there anything like that she said for you that she learned stuff from other people when she was not speaking, in your terms?
Well, I think you watch a lot more, you observe a whole lot more, you know. It's funny, I talk about this with my kids a lot because they're 14 and 10. Social pressure and social anxiety is kind of a real thing, you know, and so, and I'm a very social person, so it's not like I'm anxious, but even the natural, you know, what we're doing right now, conversational pragmatics, right? There's a certain exercise to that. There's a certain energy, there's a certain focus. Like you say something, I say something. You know, when you step away from that and you kind of watch it like it was a play, you learn a lot. You know, I never really connected as much to the aspect of the GR that was sort of menacing or bullying. I really liked the aspect that was like this witness. You know, kind of a neutral energy. You know, that was, and that's, I think, what I really enjoyed about last year.
Speaking about Ann Dowd, when we talked with her, she talked about how the relationship between Patti and Laurie was really special. So can you comment on their relationship, and what about Patti made sense for Laurie?
Well, I'm so glad she said that. I mean, we love each other. We've loved each other forever. Well, I mean, I think it's all in the writing. I mean, you have this, you know, when you see it all in the flashback, it's like, here's this woman who's like Chicken Little, and the sky is falling, and, you know, you kind of assume that's false, and you sort of dismiss that person as a crazy person. And then when they are right, they are emboldened in a pretty wild way, you know? So I think it went from sort of, you know, she was my student, if you will, as my client, as my patient, to she knew something. You know, so in this time when everybody's sort of looking for guidance, looking for solidity, Patti was the person that seemed to know what was going on. I think that because of their former relationship, I was never the good acolyte that she would have liked me to be. And that was sort of what I said to Damon, you know, like I said, listen, there's all these descriptions of Laurie as sort of like stoic and enigmatic and menacing, and I said, yeah, I can do all that, and I like all that, but you know, you cast somebody who has a really mobile face, like I have a thought and it shows up on my face. So I think what this is going to be is Laurie trying to be a good GR, you know, trying to be stoic and menacing, but not doing a very good job, which is really what the story of the first season was.
Why do you think she struggles so much with being a good GR, as you put it?
Well, I mean, a million reasons. I mean, she has kids. I don't think Patti had kids. You know, she's tied to the earth, you know, in a way that is very hard to untangle. I also think, you know, Damon once said, you know, because the whole thing, what do they believe? What do they believe? You know, it's just like in this last episode that I was in. What do they believe? And he once said a really good, I thought it was very wise. He said, listen, I think it's a little bit like the Occupy movement, where there's no central belief, right? But they are united in what they don't want to do. And they don't want to participate in, you know, living life, you know, like let's go back to the way things work, right? They are agree that that's not what they want to do. However, I think as, you know, last season, as the GR and Patti at the helm became more and more violent and provocative, I don't think Laurie signed up for that. You know, I think it was more like, you know, and this isn't just to make my character more likable, but it's like, I think Laurie thought, okay, we're going to be, you know, like Quaker witnesses, you know, we're going to, you know, be a living reminder, but we're not actually going to blow shit up. So I think that's like the MLK Malcolm X moment, and obviously the last episode when I put my daughter in harm's way. I mean, something just really broke inside of me.
So when speaking of this, of the last episode that you were just in, Off Ramp, what was your first reaction to Laurie's story when you read the script? I mean, you went from putting your daughter Jill in the GR and having it almost burn in that house. Wow, I kind of feel like the book publisher right now. I feel terrible. Please don't attack me. Spoiler alert!
Don't jump out of the phone.
I know. No, what was that? What was that like reading that script and finally finding out where her story went and knowing that it's off book and there's nothing there else except for that script? What was that like for you?
Super exciting, and we're all sort of in the dark, all us actors. So I am anyway. I mean, I knew I had lunch with Damon a year ago, November or something, and he'll never spill secrets, but I knew that I wasn't going to be in the GR anymore, and I knew that I was going to put Tom, obviously, because that's what you see. And I loved the idea that, first of all, I love Priscilla, but I loved, Damon once described the family as sort of split down the middle, and Tom and I are the seekers. We're kind of spiritual seekers, and we both essentially went after false prophets, but that doesn't mean that, our impulse to, find answers and go deep and help other people and all of that is still inside of us, whereas arguably Kevin and Jill just want to have a good day, kind of just, so delicious because, what the departure did is arguably make everybody more so of what they already were, so already, there was already rift between me and my husband, and then the departure, what the hell, there's no reason keep it together anymore. I mean, I heard from Rudy, the wardrobe guy, because again, everybody sees things before the actors, and he's like, "Whoa, Laurie, runs over the GR." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I thought I was trying to help. But there again, I kind of love the development of that, where I said to David, do I actually, run? He's like, just read the script, and the idea that, and again, I'm not trying to make Laurie the good guy because she's incredibly complex and weird, but I think she's not wrong. It's like a game of chicken, and she's revving the engine, and she wants people to wake up. She's a Zen master, right? Wake up, realize that it's using you for cannon fodder, and they don't get out of the way.
Can you talk about why you think Laurie chose to leave the Guilty Remnant?
I think she doesn't trust him anymore. I think she's full of, if what we're trying to do is wake people up and, I always connect Laurie to who she was before, which is a therapist, which is not to say she's always benevolent, but she wants people to wake up and to acknowledge reality. And, that at one point, standing outside and stalking people seemed to me the best way to go. But that realizing, that it's more, they're kamikazes. I mean, they'll burn the house down, they'll burn themselves up. And also seeing my daughter. I mean, if you think about the structure of that scene, I was pulled out and my daughter was burning alive, so I don't know who wouldn't run from that.
So you talked about Jill a little bit, and one of the things that I struggle with, I think, with the show, and it's a struggle in a good way, by the way, is Laurie had this relationship with Jill, and it's obvious that Laurie wants to have amends with her daughter. She's writing the note, and she wants to be there, even though she pretends like she's not. What I've always struggled with that notion of why can't we just have that relationship? Is that something that do you think Jill is doing, or is that something that is Laurie related? And more on the whole, what do you think is the biggest struggle that Laurie has as it relates to her family now that she's out of the Guilty Remnant?
Jill, for sure. I mean, I think that Kevin and I, and you'll see this in the. I mean, I don't know. There was some Shonda Rhimes style Twitter fan who was like, I just want to see Laurie and Kevin get together because they're all such romantic. I was like, Laurie served him divorce papers. Laurie did. Laurie is happy for him and Nora. That's, And obviously I'm connected to Tom. So it's all about Jill. I think what I don't know if we'll ever see, who even knows if there's a season 3, but I'm always interested in, because the structure of the backstory is the departure happened, and then for about over 2 years, 2.5 years, I hung in with my family, because at the top of the first season, I've only been in the GR for like 6 months. So I've always said to Damon, like, I want to see those 2.5 years, because to go from such a fully functioning person to joining the cult. And this is sort of the soft answer, but in times of darkness, I think, well, maybe he's right. I said to Damon once that maybe I joined the GR because I was going to hurt myself. You know what I mean? I mean, there are those moments where it's like, I'm not good to my kids. I'm going to hurt myself. I'm in a clinical depression, and Laurie would know. And she thinks it's the better choice to remove herself. I mean, that's a little bit of a soft answer, but certainly a lot of the season 2 is trying to repair with Jill.
You talked a little bit about Laurie's relationship with Tom and about it being so special. I wanted to know, why is she okay with putting him in the kind of danger that he faced later on in Off Ramp?
Well, we're Bonnie and Clyde, I mean, I'm not he's a grown man. And I think that, I don't know who first came up with that. I mean, I probably, was finding the stray lost GR members, and then doing my thing. And probably he said, let me go in, I can go in. And then from there it's a dance. I mean, I think that he's drawn to a certain intensity. I mean, there's, I was just looking at the scene today where after he's with Meg, and I just say, no, that's it. And I do have a lot of confidence about my book at that particular moment in the story. So I don't think I'm like willy-nilly pushing him in there. I think it's something that, we came up with together, and it's sort of working because he's so adorable and trustworthy. But I also smell her as a mom, like, okay, this has gone too far. It's not good for you. But, that's what's interesting about the relationship. I mean, the guy's not 15, it's my adult child.
Did Tom tell Laurie what happened with Meg? That was a little unclear to us in the episode.
Or at least give us your opinion on what you think happened.
No, I don't think I know the extent that happened. I mean, I think I just hear her, all she says is, who's Meg? And that's enough for me, because I know she's messing with him. But I don't think he told.
Can you tell us if the meditating Buddha on your laptop, speaking of your book, was your suggestion? Because it's shown quite a bit in episode 3.
It wasn't actually, but I liked it. I don't know where that came from. I mean, I think it was, frankly, just as a prop, because all computers look alike, to make sure that we knew which one was Laurie's. But I quite liked it.
That's a good idea, or else she would have just stolen the kid's real laptop that was his to begin with.
I mean, everybody has Apples, like they're all the same. So.
Can I just say, I loved that entire scene and how it was shot and the way you reacted. You went in there and you just took the kid's computer. There was I expected a little bit more finesse, like, oh, hey, little Billy, can I have the computer? Yeah,
no. There are no children in Leftover Home.
So there's this great bit when Laurie hesitates for a moment to go into the meeting with the book executive when she learns of her patient's death. What do you think was the internal conflict in that moment when what Laurie was facing?
Well, I think she absolutely was about to say to the guy, I just heard some terrible news. I can't go in, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. She knew she was in no shape to go in and have that meeting. And I just think that's so believable. We've all had that moment, getting some shocking bit of whatever, and then having to go and teach a class or be a parent, or, you just have to sublimate it. So, I think it was pretty clear to her, like, I can't actually sit in this room and have a coherent conversation. But then that brilliant actor and the way it's staged, he hustles me in, and before you know it, I'm sitting there. But, I think it's shock. I mean, yes, if she had a couple more minutes to think about it, it's like, holy shit, like it's not working. I mean, I'm this, your whole thing is called into question. But, I do say I don't want to go in. I mean, I say to the receptionist, like, I just got this call, and then before you know it, I'm in there.
So we also, we go through the whole conversation when you're in that room, and the publisher, we've already mentioned this, I already made fun of it a little bit earlier, but the guy goes through the whole story and everything that was happening. And obviously Laurie attacks the book publisher. Do you think she was angry at him for all the things that he was saying, bringing it all up? Or do you think Laurie was a little angry at herself for all that he mentioned?
I mean, all of it. He's such a smug presence. It's anybody. I mean, again, I think it's an amplification of the grief experience when you're out there in the world and having an inane conversation. And sometimes you can do it. A lot of times you do it. You kind of hang in. But I think there are those moments, and this is sort of the millionth degree of that moment, where I can't bear it. I mean, her heart is breaking, and he's saying, what do you feel? What do you feel? I'm not getting feeling. It's like, oh my God, I'll show you what I'm feeling, So I love that scene. I mean, because it's just such a great scene, and I think it's a great scene for artists, because in the New Yorker article, they said that scene was sort of like Damon explaining loss to his fan. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? And, I feel like I sort of embodied Damon Lindelof at that moment. But, no, I think it's also when there are no words, right? When there are no words. So I don't even know if I would, categorize it solely as anger. I think it's an explosion, it's an explosion from the psyche up top.
I feel like the publisher also served as a surrogate for a lot of the people who aren't necessarily on board with the leftovers of, okay, well, what's the GR about? Why do they smoke? Why this? Why that? I always felt like that was Damon's, or I forget who else was. Patrick Somerville, who wrote it. I think that was just their way of saying, listen, it doesn't matter why they smoke. They just do, and the world ended. So just accept it as it is. Do you think that would be a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I do. I mean, one of the reasons there's a million reasons I love this script, but as I said to Damon, it's very rare. I mean, I can't think of another time I've had this experience where I go through the whole first season being really enigmatic and mysterious, even to me, the character, and then to have an entire episode and explain yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to say, this is why I did what I did. This is exactly what I did. I mean, she tells the whole story. It's like, I had this patient, and then she, recruited me. And so to give words to something that you've been sitting on, for an entire season of television. So I think that's another example of that. It's like, okay, let's talk about it. Like the GR. It's like, why? It's like, I don't know. I think it's funny. It's like, I was talking to Kevin Carroll last night. We did an event with Damon, and Kevin is experiencing what I first experienced last year, which is like this amazing world of, I'm not a huge sci-fi person. I'm not a kind of a fangirl, but there is this signs and portents, and what does this mean? Everything is sort of endowed with this meaning, which is beautiful. And I will tell you, having read all 10 of this season, things come back in the way that, just like a good book, you're going to want to go back and watch the other ones and the previous episodes. But then there's other things. I mean, I think he plays, and Tom, comes right from Tom's book. How do we live alongside mystery? Some people are grateful with it. Some people are angry about it. But there's mystery in our lives every day. So in that way, it's not terribly far-fetched.
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things that The Leftovers does is it embraces, and obviously this is a trait of Damon Lindelof, but I think it embraces ambiguity. It finds the beauty of ambiguity, and it asks the viewer to engage it halfway, and enjoy itself and find meaning, ascribe meaning to itself for the viewer. And one of the things that I think is really ambiguous, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, is Tom and finding a place to belong for him, and for Laurie as well. You mentioned earlier about how they were seeking out these false prophets, and they were looking for a sense of belonging. Do you think Laurie has found that belonging now in Tom, and potentially his magic hugs, if he does have that power or not?
Well, I think Laurie has found her place in her vocation, which is, I mean, she is obsessed with deprogramming GR, so she would do that with or without Tom, but, like somebody who breaks up with a boyfriend and they hate them, and that's all they talk about. And you realize that's all they talk about. She is obsessed with the GR this year. She was last year. But I think that she absolutely has found her passion with that vocation. And I think, and the fact that she has her son by her side, she's great. And frankly, the fact that Kevin is now happy with Nora, I think is great too. It's like I don't have that guilt from the breakup guilt. Laurie is the missing piece. I'm sorry, Jill is the missing piece. I mean, that is an unresolved heartache that also gets explored.
Well, I can't wait to see it. And the final question I have for you is a little off book here, but if the departure really happened, how do you think you, Amy Brenneman, would react? Would you pick one of the cults to join, like the GR or the Barefoot People or the Hugging everything, or would you go to Miracle, or would you put your head in the sand and whistling past the graveyard like it didn't exist?
That's such a good question. Well, I think the big question is, if all the rules were off, which they actually are existentially. If you do good deeds, there may or may not be a heaven. When you think about it, it's like, okay, but if I could, if really it was, it's a little bit like, if you have 6 months to live kind of thing. I don't know. I think, well, if a lot of my loved ones hadn't departed, then I might be relieved and sort of freed up in a weird way of like, okay, let's play, let's go to the beach, let's not worry about putting money in the bank kind of thing. The GR I would join. The Barefoot People look like they're having fun, but they're a little dirty. Maybe the Barefoot People if they had hot showers. That's what I would say.
I lied. I have one last question for you, and then I can let you go on your very busy days. You talked about, I don't want people to all of a sudden like Laurie. I'm not trying to stump for her or anything, but I am interested and I'm curious about what you feel about that character and what you want the audience to feel about that character.
Well, the joy of this year is that I get to explain myself. I mean, that I processed so much of this last year, and I thought, oh my God, am I really like that really boring actor that just needs to be loved all the time? Because I'm really not used to playing villains, right? I'm used to playing complicated people, but, there was a moment last year where I realized, like, oh, I'm the villain of the piece, and I like, that's so interesting and uncomfortable. I think what I really wanted to do was explain Laurie. I mean, I'm not in charge of whether people like her or not, but I do feel on much more kind of comfortable footing, even though I'm running over people with, it's very clear why she's doing what she's doing. I mean, she just hates this cult and she thinks they're full of crap and they are bringing people down the garden path just like they did with my family. So in that way, I feel like, okay, I'm explaining myself and then people like me, they don't like me. Whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I think I think women are super complicated. I mean, certainly for me last year, like the biggest hurdle, I could kind of go with everything, with a leap of faith, but obviously the abandoning of the children is, as a mother myself is always like, oh, but even that, like Damon has taught me about, that people are complicated and, it's more of a common literary trope for men to leave. I mean, I feel like every novel is about some dad leaving, then reconciling. More unusual for women to do it. But that's why this is a cool role. It's challenging.
Well, Amy, I'll speak for my wife, who's actually taking care of my beautiful 5-month-old daughter right now upstairs.
Oh.
I'll speak for her, and I'll speak for all the listeners that we have, everybody that enjoys this podcast and your show, and you, your role and the job that you do. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute honor to speak with you, and I really cannot wait to share this with our listeners.
Oh, thank you for taking the time and your interest. I know you've been an early and ardent fan, so thank you for that.
Yes, we were. I'm proud to proclaim this. We were the first podcast dedicated to The Leftovers, and I'm extremely proud of that fact.
Oh, yay. Congratulations to you.
Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you again soon sometime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you once again to Amy for joining us on the show. Blake, what did you think?
I absolutely adore her, and the fact that she's a New England gal, which is even better because she's originally from Connecticut, as a matter of fact. She is just freaking awesome.
You know, it kind of worries me that she and Ann Dowd, who played Patti, are from New England. Like, it makes you wonder, like, oh, no, if you live in New England, does it kind of mess you up? Like, is there something wrong with us because we get blizzards and hurricanes and we become hermits for, 6 months out of a year?
And guilty remnant people all of a sudden for no reason.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, man. Well, once again, thank you so much. That was awesome. We also want to thank our blog members for chipping in. So if you guys haven't had a chance yet to check out the Living Reminders blog, it is like the coolest thing.
That's right. When we found out that we were doing this interview, we wanted to make sure that we got all the questions right and get everything that we thought was relevant for you guys to get the most amount of information possible. So I just wanted to personally thank all of the writers, including the editor-in-chief, Missy Ortiz, and all the writers, John and Russell and Kendra, Ashley, Angelica, Franziska, Mike, Brian Davids, Chris Hartwell, all of you guys, you all contributed to they all contributed to the questions for this interview, and I'm so happy that they did. Thank you. It's an honor to work with you guys. So please go ahead and check out the Living Reminders blog and see all of their awesome articles when you get a chance. That'd be great. Thank you so much. My love, are you ready to close out the show?
You bet. We want to keep this conversation going and would love to actually know what you thought about this interview. Reach out to us, please, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Our handles are Living Reminders. So that's LIVINGREMINDERS. Just one word.
Wow, you should be like part of a spelling bee. If the social media isn't enough for you, you can always reach us at livingreminders@gmail.com.
Or you can visit our website, thelivingreminders.com, where you can see all previous episodes, all of our previous interviews too. So check that out.
Interviews including Ann Dowd and Carrie Coon, Christopher Eccleston, Mimi Leader. They're all there. And while you're there at thelivingreminders.com, there's a little button on the top right-hand corner that says support. And there's a bunch of ways that you can support us, The Living Reminders, to help keep it a free podcast. Number one of them is donating $1 or $2 to Patreon. We'd be glad to accept any donation that you'd be willing to give. But the most important thing you can do for a free podcast is to tell a friend. Tell a friend that on Facebook or Twitter that we exist, that the show exists, and that there's this amazing podcast about it that you can nerd out with an entire community of people. We would love for you to tell someone that we exist.
Believe it or not, there are people that do not know that The Leftovers exists or that our
Stop it.
podcast exists.
No
It's true.
way.
It's true. So, okay.
We're a media giant.
We're coming up to the month of November, and it's like a thankful month. It's the month you're supposed to be thankful. So we are thankful to you, and if you are thankful to The Leftovers show or to our podcast, anything like that, we want to bring awareness to it. So head on over to iTunes. Okay, right now, the Living Reminders podcast has 59 ratings and reviews. I charge you listeners to bring it up to 70 by the end of this month.
Oh, big number.
Okay, the reason being, the more ratings and reviews there are, the more likely more eyes are going to see it. iTunes rates it, so more people see it, even if they don't watch the show The Leftovers. So this is one of the biggest ways we can let people learn about the show.
Sure. And the last but not least thing is to go to the Living Reminders blog, and you can find it at thelivingreminders.com. Hit the little button that says blog, and you'll be able to see all of the great articles and great ideas by all the writers we mentioned early on in the episode. So please check out the Living Reminders blog.
As for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mary Larson.
My name's Blake.
We're the Living Reminders, and we're still here.